When I think of The Road, a book written by Cormac McCarthy, I think about the story of Sisyphus. The myth of Sisyphus follows a man who cheats death. While on his deathbed, Sisyphus asks his wife to toss his body in the public square. When he arrives to the underworld, he tells Persephone that he received an improper burial, and as a result, Sisyphus is sent back to the land of the living to make things right. However, Zeus sees this and sends Sisyphus to Hades, where he is tasked with pushing a large boulder up to the top of a hill. However, every time Sisyphus reaches the top of the hill, the boulder rolls all the way back down to the bottom. Sisyphus is forced to push the boulder back up to the top of the hill over and over and over again for all of eternity. In the beginning of The Road, we are given the description of a man and his young child as they push a grocery cart across a long and vast wasteland. This imagery of the cart being pushed through all sorts of terrain and all sorts of weather harkens back to Sisyphus, as The Road is about a man made to suffer. Cormac McCarthy is known for his more bleak, depressing stories. You may be more familiar with No Country for Old Men, or perhaps its Oscar-winning film adaptation, or even Blood Meridian. Growing up, McCarthy struggled in school, instead opting to pursue hobbies outside of his education. One of these hobbies was writing. Many have described McCarthy as a nihilist. For those perhaps unfamiliar with nihilism, this form of thinking subscribes to the idea that life is meaningless. There is no correct religion or moral principles. We are all lost souls unable to find the answers, so there is no point in even trying. It's easy to pick up the road and become overwhelmed by what is seemingly an endless description of despair. The book follows a man and his son, both of which who are unnamed. As stated before, we are introduced to them as they push a grocery cart across a desolate, post-apocalyptic wasteland. The grocery cart contains all of their findings as they've made their way down the road. The road. These two words are repeated countless times throughout the story. The road is leading the father and his son to the ocean side in the south. Not only will they benefit from being in the south, as temperatures in the north have become too difficult to survive, but the father keeps some sort of optimism that making the journey will save them. On the road, every stranger is a potential threat. There are next to no good people, nobody worth taking a chance on. The first encounter with characters other than the father and his son happens rather early on in the book. The man hears a diesel engine running. He quickly grabs his son, and they hide, watching from afar. Pretty soon, a member from the hostile group comes into the woods to use the bathroom. The man holds the stranger at gunpoint, to which the stranger remarks that there are only 2 bullets left in the chamber, and that it would not be worth using one on him. The stranger continually looks to the son, to which the father demands that he look away. The stranger then grabs the boy and holds him at knife point. The father watches helplessly before firing the pistol and shooting the stranger in the head. The young boy is covered with the aftermath, blood and gore. The group around the diesel engine look in their direction and begin to follow the sound of the gunfire. The man picks up the boy and runs as fast as he can. We are then given glimpses of the father and his son's previous life. It is revealed that the boy was born when the world was already in shambles. The man's wife was mentally ill, often talking about how death would be an easier escape as opposed to living life in the apocalypse. The man begs her not to dwell on these thoughts, but she eventually ends up taking her life, leaving the man and his son on their own. Now only down to 1 bullet, the possibility of escape for both the man and his son has become simply futile. The man often instructs the boy on what to do should he need to use the final bullet on himself. A passage from the book reads, "The boy was terrified. He put his arm around him and held him, his body so thin. "Don't be afraid," he said. "If they find you, you are going to have to do it. Do you understand?" "Shh, no crying. Do you hear me? You know how to do it. You put it in your mouth and you point it up. Do it quick and hard. Do you understand? Stop crying. Do you understand?" "I think so." "No. Do you understand?" "Yes." "Say yes, I do, Papa." "Yes, I do, Papa." The passage follows one of the more grim descriptions in the book. While on the road, the man and his son stop to investigate a house for food. Both are on the verge of starvation and are desperate. While looting through the house, they discover a wooden hatch in the pantry. The man uses a spade to knock loose the lock before they descend down the wooden staircase. In the cold, dark, concrete basement, they are horrified to find a myriad of naked bodies huddled up against the walls. Filthy mattresses litter the room, and on one of them there is a half-eaten body. The bodies soon begin to speak, calling out to the man and his son for help. The man quickly grabs his son, and they flee the basement. As they reach the top of the steps, it isn't long before the man realizes that there's a small group of men and women approaching the house from outside. The man and his son narrowly escape the house and end up hiding in the overgrown yard for what seems like days, afraid to get up and return to their grocery cart. The boy sleeps during the night, and the man listens as he can hear the sounds of muffled shrieks coming from the basement of the house. The two eventually make a run for it and escape successfully. The two continue their journey down the road. The man becomes increasingly concerned about the boy's condition. In one particular passage, McCarthy illustrates their starvation by giving us a description of the man and his son eating dirty snow and using a washcloth to wring out water for drinking. The dark storm clouds seemingly clear, however, when the man finds a hatch in the backyard of an abandoned neighborhood. Inside, he finds a myriad of canned goods and other miscellaneous doomsday prep materials. They stay there for a short period of time before continuing down the road. It isn't long before the man and his son come across an old man on the road. Upon approaching him, he collapses. The man is afraid that the old man could be a decoy or a trap, but his son convinces him to help the old man. They give him food and invite him to stay the night with them. It is here where the man and the old man talk about the concept of God, a reoccurring theme throughout the novel. The man and the boy part ways with the older man the following morning. Following this, the pair observe a group of survivors. They consist of a few men and pregnant women, all of which are in the process of abandoning a campsite. Following their departure, the man and the boy sneak over to the campsite to see if they left anything behind. The boy is shocked as he approaches the campfire and finds a newborn infant roasting above the fire. The man quickly grabs the boy, who is now traumatized to the point of a vow of silence. The two eventually reach the ocean, and the man apologizes to the boy, as it is now nothing but gray water as opposed to the beautiful blue they had hoped for. Despite this and the freezing temperature, we are treated to one of the more heartwarming passages in the book. "Can I go swimming?" "Swimming? Yes. You'll freeze your tuchus off." "I know. It will be really cold, worse than you think." "That's okay." He rose and let the blanket fall to the sand, and then stripped out of his coat and out of his shoes and clothes. He stood naked, clutching himself and dancing. Then he went running down to the beach, so white, knobby spine bones, the razorous shoulder blades sawing under the pale skin, running naked and leaping and screaming into the slow roll of the surf. The man decides to explore a boat that is washed upon the shore. He swims out and takes a few supplies, including a flare gun. The two make camp by the beach and spend a few days there together. On one occurrence, they return to their campsite to see that the grocery cart has been recently stolen. The two track down the thief, ultimately seizing the cart back. The man holds him at gunpoint, demanding that he roll the cart back to them. The thief pleads with them, saying that he will die if he doesn't take some of their supplies. The man replies that so will we. The man then forces the thief to strip naked and toss his clothes onto the cart. The boy begins to panic, realizing that his father is essentially about to kill the thief. The man grabs the boy and they walk back to their campsite, leaving the man there to freeze to death. This instance causes the boy to question whether he and his father are actually the good guys that they claim to be. The phrase "carrying the fire" is used on multiple occasions by McCarthy to illustrate that the boy and his father are the last two rays of light in a continually darkening world. As with most post-apocalyptic novels, however, most of their choices become morally ambiguous. Our story comes to a close as the man and his son continue moving south along the beach. The father, whose illness has progressed throughout the story, can no longer make the journey on foot. Realizing that he will soon die, the father shares a moment with his son, telling him that he must continue to carry the fire. The man dies and leaves the boy alone. Unsure of what to do, the boy wanders around the road, eventually being approached by a man who tells him that he and his wife are willing to take him in. They have a son and a daughter. The boy hesitantly accepts, bringing the man back to where his father had died. The man covers his body, and the two journey out together into the wasteland. When asked about his inspiration for the story, McCarthy credits his son. He said that the inspiration for the book came during a 2003 father and son visit to El Paso, Texas. While McCarthy's son slept in the hotel room, McCarthy looked out the window and imagined what the city in front of him would look like in 50 to 100 years into the future. He pictured fires on the hill and thought about his son. He took some initial notes, but did not return to the idea until years later. He remembers the novel coming to him quickly, taking only 6 weeks to write. McCarthy never explains to us the real reason behind the world coming to an end. However, we do have some clues as to what the origin of the end of all things could have been. We know it's not a pandemic or global warming, since we read the passage, "a long sheer of light," and then a series of low concussions, describing the event that ended civilization. The bright light and subsequent concussions suggest several possible events, the first being an asteroid impact, the second being a supervolcano like Yellowstone erupting, or the third being a nuclear blast. The world of the road is covered in ash and fires rage everywhere. In certain areas, people have been burnt to death in their cars, suggesting that they were too close to the massive blast of some kind. All three of the events described above have the potential to cause such devastation. Ultimately, many see McCarthy's decision to not give the solitary cause to the apocalypse as justified, as it does not give or take away from the main story. McCarthy explores various themes in the book, but the one I find to be interesting revolves around the concept of God, or perhaps the entire absence of one. During the man and his son's interactions with the old man, there is a dialogue between the two about a higher being. In response to the boy giving the old man some cans of vegetables and fruit, the man suggests that the old man should thank the boy. He responds, "Maybe I should, and maybe I shouldn't. Why wouldn't you? I wouldn't have given him mine. You don't care if it hurts his feelings? Will it hurt his feelings? No, that's not why he did it. Why did he do it?" He looked over at the boy and he looked at the old man. "You wouldn't understand," he said. "I'm not sure that I do. Maybe he believes in God. I don't know what he believes in. He'll get over it." "No, he won't." The old man didn't answer. He looked around at the day. "You won't wish me luck either, will you?" the man said. "I don't know what that would mean, what luck would look like. Who would know such a thing?" These themes on God and spirituality have led some readers to speculate the origin of the apocalypse lies within the biblical rapture, wherein all Christians have ascended to heaven, leaving behind all non-believers to suffer until the rising of the Antichrist. This theory would explain the seeming lack of decent people in the world and the ashy, almost hellish landscape. Perhaps this theory would make more sense, taking into account McCarthy's view on religion as well as life after death. Consider this quote from McCarthy, taken from The Sunset Limited. "Show me a religion that prepares one for death, for nothingness. There is a church I might enter. Yours prepares one only for life, for dreams and illusions and lies. If you could banish the fear of death from men's hearts, they wouldn't live a day. Who would want this nightmare if not for fear of the next? The shadow of the axe hangs over every joy. Every road ends in death, or worse. Every friendship, every love, torment, betrayal, loss, suffering, pain, age, indignity, and hideous lingering illness, all with a single conclusion. For you, for everyone, and everything that you have chosen to care for, there's the true brotherhood, the true fellowship, and everyone is a member for life. Everyone is a member for life. Everyone who is born and will ever be born will be met with pain and suffering to some extent, as it is a part of the human experience, the sole thing that binds us together. And while this disparity might overshadow it, McCarthy's The Road is also a story of hope, as he describes it.
I think a lot of people think that The Road, La Carretera, is a very depressing, sad book. But the truth is that the real story is about the love between the father and the son. That's what the story is about. And I think if the book attempts to show anything, it attempts to show that love can survive even under the most horrible circumstances. And if you really love someone, if you really love your son, it doesn't make any difference how bad the world gets. You will stick with him, you will die for him, you will do anything for him. Yeah, I would never have written La Carretera if I had not had a son. What would I write about? My dog? But when so he's sort of the co-author. He's the reason the book was written, and without him, it would never have been written. Would never have even thought about it.
After the death of the man, the boy is left defenseless, nowhere to go, no direction or means of survival. He is simply lost without his father, his family. But with the death of one comes the possibility for another, in the form of the stranger and his family, who take the boy in as one of their own. They too, like the boy, are a part of the brotherhood that McCarthy describes. We all hurt, we all suffer, and because of this, we are more alike than we may ever know.